What happens when justice isn't black and white, but something painfully gray? In this emotionally raw and unforgettable story, we follow Malik, a young black teacher in a quiet Midwestern town, who witnesses a disturbing police stop that spirals into something he never expected. As a man who always believed in conversation over confrontation, Malik is thrown into a whirlwind of doubt, fear, and moral reckoning after a single moment changes everything. Told with cinematic detail and heartfelt honesty, this story peels back the layers of society where law and justice don't always align. You'll feel the tension, the heartbreak, and ultimately, the quiet power of standing up when silence becomes complicity. If you've ever questioned your role in the fight for justice, this story is for you. Sit back, listen close, let the story change you. I used to believe in the system, not blindly, just enough to tell my high school students, if you're ever in trouble, call the police. Enough to believe that being calm, being respectful, being good was enough. That was before the night on Sycamore Street. Before I saw a man break in front of me, not from violence, but from silence, and before I realized that sometimes the worst kind of injustice is the one you don't see coming. My name's Malik Taylor. I'm 29 years old, a history teacher in a small Midwestern town where everyone knows your business, your church, and your license plate number. Most days, I wear cardigans, carry a lunchbox, and grade papers until the janitor kicks me out. I moved here 3 years ago because I believed change starts small. Thought I could make a difference in a town that hadn't changed much since 1963. I taught my kids about Malcolm and Martin, about the March on Washington, and the Montgomery bus boycott. I taught them to speak truth, but respectfully, to be proud but careful, and I believed it when I said it. Until that night, it was a Wednesday, spring air, warm with thunder in the distance. I had just left the school after helping a student finish his college essay. Driving home on Sycamore Street, I saw flashing lights in my rear view, but they weren't for me. A beat-up maroon sedan was pulled over, and standing outside, hands raised, was Darren Miller. Darren wasn't just some guy. He was my former student. Smart, funny, used to crack jokes about wanting to be the Black Tony Stark. He was 19 now, studying engineering, last I heard. But that night, he didn't look like Tony Stark. He looked terrified. There were 2 officers. One had his hand on his weapon. The other was shouting. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Darren looked frozen, not moving a muscle. I pulled over. I didn't plan to get involved. I just couldn't drive past. I rolled my window down, phone in hand, recording, quietly, just in case. One of the officers noticed me. His eyes narrowed. He motioned me away with his flashlight. Keep driving, sir. This doesn't concern you. But it did. I called out carefully. He's my student. Is he okay? The officer stepped toward my car. Sir, I said, move along. His tone wasn't angry. It was cold, calculated. I've seen enough history to recognize the threat behind a calm voice. Before I could respond, Darren made a sudden motion. Too fast. He reached into his coat. Both officers shouted. I held my breath. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out his inhaler. The moment passed, but the tension didn't. They yelled, cuffed him, pushed his face against the hood like he was some threat to national security. I got out of the car. I don't know what I was thinking. My hands were up. My voice was shaking. I'm a teacher, I said. He has asthma. Please. That's when they turned on me. They didn't arrest me. Didn't touch me. They just stared. And one of them said, you people always want to play hero. And that hit me harder than a shove ever could. You people. He said it like we were a nuisance. A burden. Not neighbors. Not citizens. Just a problem to contain. Eventually, they let Darren go. No charges. No explanation. Just bruises. Humiliation. And silence. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about how many times I told my students to stay calm, to comply, to trust the system. I thought about how my silence, my respectability, my cardigan and lunchbox hadn't protected either of us. The next morning, I changed my lesson plan. I told my students the truth about Sycamore Street, about Darren, about the way fear can wear a badge and still go unchecked. I didn't tell them to be angry. I told them to be aware, to document, to protect each other, and to never let silence be their shield. His story didn't end in gunshots. It didn't make national headlines, but it changed me because for the first time, I understood that injustice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it tells you to move along, like you don't belong in your own story. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay bear witness, speak up, even if your voice shakes. Because justice doesn't start in courtrooms. It starts in moments like these.